Got to put these shades on for sure, keeping it cooler inside. I mean, it's been so hot here in Nevada. Temperatures have been reaching over 110 degrees, y'all. Whew. Today, we're going to take you through our full story of our scariest encounter living in our camper van. This guy right there is just like randomly came up to us and asked if we were, first question was veterans, and now he's driving around the parking lot. Dude, it's kind of creepy. Just hovering around the parking lot. Oh man, that's a little unsettling. There's a black car. Feels a little weird as well. Just kind of sitting there. Oh gosh. What happened to us can happen to any person living in a van or RV. But a lot of times you think, well, it can't happen to me. And it definitely can. For any of you RVers or van lifers out there who enjoy boondocking or taking advantage of those free overnight camping spots or even off-grid camping, well, we posted a video last week, which many of you may have seen.
We received some incredible comments and tips from our viewers who shared their own experiences in similar situations. And actually, some of those tips made us wonder, should we have left the parking lot actually sooner?
And for all my ladies out there who solo RV, it's especially important for you to think about and be prepared for.
So let us take you back to what happened. We had just had an amazing camping adventure in Death Valley in the Alabama hills. And we had a long road trip ahead of us that day. And we knew we'd be staying either in a parking lot somewhere or potentially a truck stop.
Yeah.
And so we had many, it was like about a 4-hour drive or so. So a long road trip. And the thought was we'd have an enjoyable night. Tanya had prepared. She was going to make an amazing dinner in the parking lot. So I was super stoked for that. And yeah, we thought it was going to be just a wonderful time. We had no idea what was in store for us. We had also looked online for the reviews of these places we were thinking about staying overnight to make sure there weren't any obvious safety concerns in those places. And we actually had not seen any. So we felt pretty comfortable in terms of where we were headed.
So we were considering two primary spots, a truck stop, which we all know truck stops can be pretty loud. And if you've camped overnight at truck stops, that's the case. Or there was a casino with an abandoned amusement park. So we checked out both, but we thought it'd be pretty cool to check out and explore the abandoned amusement park that was attached to this casino. Not to mention, the parking lot seemed really quiet, well lit, and there was security patrol. So we thought we were gonna have a good night.
Shortly after we arrived to the parking lot, however, Tanya noticed a Ford Explorer slowly driving by the back of our camper van. And Tanya has great spidey senses, much more than me. I tend to just miss all that. I mean, her spidey senses immediately kicked off. I wasn't too worried at the time. We've seen many folks drive by our Echo and really check out Desert Snow because it does look different from many other RVs. So I thought, okay, they're probably just checking out the Echo, nothing to worry about.
Yeah, you know what? Dave's right. Despite my spidey senses, which I tend to have often, I did notice this black Ford Explorer slowly rolling by Desert Snow. And like Dave said, people do check it out. But there was something weird I felt inside. It was tinted windows. It was rolled down just enough so you couldn't see the person inside. It was really just rolling by slowly. So we really didn't think anything of it more than that. And we went into the casino, which was still open, met the teams from the management team, which talked about some of the rich history, which we love doing, exploring history of places. And we really were enjoying ourselves.
We stayed inside the casino for a while and couldn't see our van or our bikes, which are attached to the back of our van, during that time, obviously. And I do have to admit that I did have a bit of nervousness just kind of thinking about our bikes and also the Ford Explorer.
Me too.
That Tanya had mentioned. And just, that fear would come out and our bikes would be missing. Because we have a lot of friends we know that have actually had bikes ripped off before at various places. So I had a little bit of nervousness there. And so when we came out of the casino and saw our van and of course the bikes attached across the parking lot, there was definitely a little bit of a sense of relief there.
So by this time it was starting to get dark. And so we decided to go inside and I was prepping and starting to make dinner. And then all of a sudden, as I'm making dinner, there was this white car that pulls up. It drops its tinted windows fully and just starts staring at the RV. So I'm looking out the window and then I decided to open the door. I thought maybe it was someone that knew us.
Right, and I was resting in the back.
Yeah,
I didn't even know what was going on.
And Dave was resting in the back with the kitties. And so I decided to go outside and take a look and ask and say, hey, what's up? His first response, as soon as I said that, was, are you veterans? And I'm like, okay, no, we're not veterans, but our families are. We're actually military brats. And then he jumped right in. He says, what are you up to? I was like, well, we're just cooking dinner and I'm going to get back to it. And he goes, dinner and strippers. And weird, just powered it, just booked it right off. And I was like, that was really, really, really weird encounter with this creepy guy. This guy right there is just like randomly came up to us and asked if we were, first question was veterans. And now he's driving around the parking lot. Dude, it's kind of creepy. So I let the security guards know, but he's out there just hovering around the parking lot. Oh, man.
Now, while I was resting, I heard Tanya talking to someone outside our van, and I didn't think too much of it. I couldn't really hear what was being discussed because our AC was blaring right over my head.
Hey, Craig.
But it's not unusual. We had met the managers in the casino. I thought maybe one of them had stopped by on their way home at the time. It was time, kind of end of the day. They were maybe leaving, maybe saying goodbye. Or sometimes, a viewer from our YouTube videos might stop by, recognize us, and we talk to them. That's very common. It happens. And so I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
But then when Tanya came in and told me what happened, and in particular, the question about veterans, I mean, my first thought was, I think he was trying to figure out if we had firearms.
Mm-hmm.
As you think about veterans, you kind of expect veterans, more often than not, probably to have firearms. Maybe that's not true, but that's kind of a thought I think many of us have. And so that's all I could think of. And it made me start to get very uncomfortable. I was starting to really join Tanya with those spidey senses for sure at that point.
Yeah, so Dave's spidey senses are going off. Mine's are like going berserk.
Yeah.
And I saw the security guard, do a round. And so I immediately went outside and I told the security guard about the encounter I had with the car that sped off. And he told me to describe it so I could remember it right in my head because I always pay attention to things like that. So I told him what type of car it was. I told him the description of the guy when I remember. And he says, I'll keep an eye out for it, and then kind of went away. So I'm automatically getting nervous about different things. And because of that, my spidey senses went off again, thinking about the Ford Explorer that was there earlier. So I just looked out the window to see if I saw this Ford Explorer, and it was there. It was so scary. It was there. And it was driving past, again, our RV, and it was doing slow motion right behind us, like slow motion. And then I'm watching it as it's slowly leaving the parking lot. And you guys didn't see this as well, but when I was making dinner, I ended up giving I made a plate for the security guard, to make that connection. I know they work hard, so I wanted to say, make sure you're eating properly. And I always make a boatload of food, so I gave him a plate. And when I brought him that plate, he told me that he did see him. He didn't see him at first, but then he did see them. He approached the guy, and he said the guy seemed a little off, like he was on drugs or something mental. So I said, well, that's not good. I'm glad we have you guys here. And things of that nature. So I was getting really, really nervous. But, I was thinking maybe we're overreacting about some of this. As long as we got the security guards here, we could be fine. And I just kept getting this overwhelming feeling in my gut and in my head. And it just felt like situations went from one thing to the next. And we were getting really nervous. It was a black car. Feels a little weird as well. Just kind of sitting there. Oh, gosh. That is the same one that was there earlier. The Ford that was there earlier that also kind of circled by. Black Ford Explorer. Oh my goodness.
And after trying to talk to the security guard, he left to do his rounds around the parking lot. And then, maybe it was about, 15 minutes later or so, the security guard pulled back up near us. And I went out and talked to him. And he actually said he saw that white car with the tinted windows parked in another part of the parking lot, an area that we actually couldn't see, and there was no one in the car.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what he said. He didn't know where the person had gone. And at that point, the security guard told me that he was actually going to go on break and eat the pasta, enjoy the pasta that Tanya had given him earlier.
And shortly after the security guard told Dave he was going on break, it's probably like another 10 minutes went by, that black Ford Explorer came back. And right behind it was a white tinted out Sprinter van. And they both drove really slowly back behind our RV, behind Desert Snow. Either they were looking at the bikes. I don't know what it was, but they drove by really slow. So I'm cooking, and I'm just kind of side-eyeing, looking outside as to see where they're going. And they both parked next to each other. And what made it even worse is they didn't get out of the car. The cars were both idling, and the black Explorer and the white tinted out Sprinter van, they didn't get out of their vehicles. So I'm really freaking out at this point.
Yeah, we were very, nerves felt really exposed too, because we knew the security guard was currently on break.
Y'all, we got so nervous because we felt like we were being cased.
Yeah.
Like they were thinking about taking our bikes and throwing them in the back of the van, for example. So at this point, I'm like, okay, Dave, we got to do something right now. So we wanted to pack things up very inconspicuously, so to not trigger whatever they were thinking about doing. So rolled up the shades like we're about to have a nice dinner. I told Dave to get into the front seat, get things ready up there while I secure things back here. Because as soon as we drop these van maids, we need to hit it. Oh
I know,
my gosh.
it was really
so
scary, right? And yeah, we were both very scared at that point. Our suspicion was that they would approach us while the security guard was on break and try to take our bikes,
Oh my gosh.
or worse, try to take our camper van. And so we knew we wanted to get out of there quickly, and not raise any red flags to them that we're about to leave while we were packing up to get ready to kind of get out of that parking lot as quickly as we could.
Exactly. Our biggest concern, like before pulling off and driving off, was that they would either try to cut us off. There's two vehicles, cut us off, or hold us up, or whatever it might have been, right as we're about to pull off. So we had to react quickly. That was the whole plan, is we need to react quickly. I still had enough visibility in my shades to see where they were as Dave is getting things ready in the front. So right as we dropped the shades and we're about to drive off, we drove off. There wasn't an issue. But I'm like peeking back, I'm looking back, and I'm just afraid that they're gonna follow us.
Yes.
And it was like very fortunate that they did not follow us. But then as we're, you leave the parking lot, and as you're heading on the highway, you still have good visibility of the casino parking lot. So you could see the white van and you can see the Ford Explorer next to each other. And at that point, I saw the white van folks get out. They went around to the other side. That was
right when we left.
Right when we left. Other than they were sitting in there. They were idling. And then right when we left, they get out. So there was a lot of little things that drew some suspicions, but we felt very relieved, like they weren't following us. So we wanted to try and make a good dent between the casino and where we were going to camp next. And why I'm getting even extra nervous even talking about this is because a lot of the comments from our viewers that we were reading on situations like this that may have happened to them, and things that we weren't even aware of that could have happened even worse.
Now, we were super relieved getting out of that parking lot. And once we're on the highway, we were going to go to the next exit and there's a truck stop right after that. We were not going to do it because we were afraid they'd follow us to the next exit. So we just kept on going. We went a good 45 minutes, decided to go to a truck stop that we knew very well. We'd actually stayed there before. We felt safe. It was super active. It was very loud. Very loud truck stop.
I'll take that in.
But tons of truckers, well lit. We were comfortable sleeping there. So we headed there, and when we got there, it was just a huge relief.
I will take that truck stop with noise after that situation. Any day.
As Tanya mentioned before, we received some just amazing comments and tips from our viewers. So thank you very much for that. We really appreciate you sharing your experiences and your tips with us, because we're all learning together in this, living the van life and parking in these places overnight. And many of your comments, quite frankly, reinforced a lot of the fears that we had. And I thought it would be good just maybe walk through some of them. I think sharing them would be helpful.
Yeah, like for instance, this is pertaining to that question about the veterans. And it was, they wanted to know whether you had firearms.
Right.
And that was like, okay, we kind of knew that. David's just
we
kind of
suspected it, but are you overreacting to the question? Is that, is that a reasonable assumption? And so many of you said the same thing, that we thought it just made us even kind of more suspicious of that whole creepy situation.
Oh yeah. Or the other one is like we always say, trust your instincts. Yes, I have the spidey senses that goes off a lot wherever we park somewhere that I'm not familiar with. I'm always watching. Sometimes Dave will say you're overreacting, but I always feel it's a good balance, because having that is what keeps you safe.
Absolutely.
Trust your instincts.
And if you start getting those if the sensors are going off, something's not quite right in a parking lot you're staying overnight at, get out of there. I mean, like, we feel like we took too long to get out at this point. At the time, we were kind of thinking, are we overreacting? Can we stay? Is it okay? But it got worse and worse and worse, and it's just not worth it. If you sense something wrong, move on, find another place.
He's right. It was a weird sequence of events that just felt like it was just escalating, and move on. I also know in a video I did mention, am I overreacting to this? And it was an overwhelming amount of comments that came through that said, you're not overreacting, you were being cased. And this came from folks that may have had similar situations happen to them, or even had their bikes stolen.
Right. No, and reading that again, it's like, wow, this was, so nervous. I know, it just, and actually, coming back and like doing this video, it kind of brings back all those emotions again. And you just realize it was a very dangerous situation.
Now, this next comment, quite frankly, made me the most nervous. And it was like, getting the van could also have been used to trap us in. Explorer in the back of us, the van in the front of us, and they were waiting for security guards to go and brake.
I know.
So that was because of the fact that it really was 10 minutes or so after
I know.
the security guard said he was going in to have the spaghetti, and we made him. It's like they knew where they parked to go in, and then that's when they were setting this up. It was the most, it was very scary.
And reading that comment from someone who seemed very experienced in this type of thing, maybe involved in security, that absolutely spooked us, right? Because I mean, that's exactly what could have been going on.
This next comment was like, they may have planned on carjacking you, taking everything. That's very scary to even think about.
Yeah, I know, that is like absolutely frightening. And, you know, we definitely thought that was a possibility. We, you know, certainly the bikes, we saw them really eyeing the back of the van. So we thought for sure they were looking at those bikes, but you know, who knows? Maybe they were going further to try to take everything.
Right. And that wasn't a real suspicion of ours until we read some of these comments that put things into more perspective. You know, you sometimes things are happening so quickly, you miss a lot of the intricacies. But with these comments and through some of you guys that may have had these experiences, it really has opened our eyes up to more, which is why we think by sharing this, it's going to help all of our RVers out there that love boondocking and going off grid. And especially my ladies, you know, my ladies, you love solo female out there doing your thing. You might even be more of a target for things like this, even worse. So this next one, we actually talk about quite a bit, but it really enforced things. Quite a few of you guys mentioned the same things about parking well at areas under cameras, preferably in places with other truckers, or at least RV overnighters.
Right.
Now, we did a lot of, you know, we read reviews in this place and nothing seemed to be alarming. It had security. It did not have truckers and there weren't any RVs. There was a few trucks.
A few trucks, but they actually pulled out later. They kind of rested for a few hours.
Right, which means they might have gone in and threw down on the slots or had a bite to eat and then left. But it was well lit and it did have security. So we felt like it was a comfortable situation at that time.
Exactly. And it was very quiet, right? With not much activity. So like versus a truck stop where you have so much activity, you have the truckers everywhere. There's definitely, like thinking about it, there's definitely more of a safety feeling in an actual truck stop than just some random parking lot somewhere, obviously.
For sure. So we hope by sharing this, the full story of what happened in last week's video, it really does open our fellow RVers out there who love boondocking, who love overnight camping in cool spots that might be quiet, who love going off grid. Just always be aware of your surroundings. Park your vehicle in a way that you can have an easy escape, right?
Yes.
And have things to protect yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if your spidey senses kind of get going, if something doesn't seem right about an area, don't like sit around and like let things build up. Just get out of there. Find a new spot.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, and take a second if you haven't done so. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. We'd really appreciate that. And on that note, y'all, we'll see you in the next one.